person, I think it makes sense to for us to start meeting back again in person. So I would say beginning in April, these meetings will be in person. We have to figure out where that's going to be and what that looks like. Currently, the way these meetings are live streamed is through Zoom, and if we discontinue Zoom, the live stream will discontinue. So I just want to put it out there and prepare everyone. We'll start working on solutions now, but we will be back live in person as of August, or as of April. Been a busy time. The other thing that I just want to prepare everyone for is we've had some things change on the agenda, most notably, which I'm sure a lot of people are tuning in for. The word came out Friday evening from DESE about some of the changes, which led to yesterday's announcement that we're going to be returning students in person as of April 5th. So that discussion will happen. We're going to have the seal of biliteracy presentation and the school year discussion, and then we will dive into a added agenda item around return to school. And with that, we're going to get started with a real quick announcement from Aiden Briggs. Aiden is a senior at Lynnfield High School. She sent some information over about an open house that the music department is doing, I believe, tomorrow. You know, performing arts have obviously taken a hit over the last year. Students have not been able to perform. So I know there's going to be informational sessions about music. So Aiden reached out to me, asked me to share some stuff. I'm happy to share it, but I thought it would make a lot more sense for her to come in and just talk about what's happening. So Aiden, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. So as Mr. Heyman just said, my name is Aiden Briggs. I'm a senior at Lynnfield High School, and I'm the president of the Tri-M Honors Music Society. And I would agree that we've kind of taken a hit throughout the pandemic. You know, we've been trying to find ways to get kids involved as best we can. And this presentation is one of the things we came up with. So it's going to be Wednesday at 11:45 a.m. and Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And you only have to go to one. So usually we go to the middle school in person and we kind of give them a little performance and we give them a rundown, but obviously we're unable to do that. That being said, this presentation I think will be a good opportunity for people who even aren't in the middle school to get involved. There's a flyer. It's on our Instagram at Lynnfield High Music. And I also think Mr. Heyman might be sending it out. It's around the school. I know a few teachers have it in the middle school. It's all over the high school. And there's a QR code. If you just scan it, it'll take you to a document with the Zoom link, as well as a Google form to fill out if you're an upcoming high school student, and then a Google form to fill out if you have any questions that you didn't feel comfortable asking. And we're just trying to do this to make sure everyone understands the structure of music at high school. It's very different, and we want to make sure we get and regenerate as much interest as we can. So I'd love to see everybody there. If you don't feel comfortable, you can join anonymously. It's not a big deal. And yeah, so tomorrow and Thursday.
That's great. Thank you very much, Aiden. And I will post that on my Facebook page, and the district will. Kristen, can we send some stuff out about that especially to middle school students and high school students?
Yes, I'll get it to Mr. Ralston tomorrow morning to get him to send it out.
That's great. Thank you very much. Aiden, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, take care.
Bye.
All right. Kristen, do you want to position the seal of biliteracy presentation?
I'm actually going to have Kevin do it. Kevin's done a ton of work with Jody and Meg on this presentation, so I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, we're very pleased to have Meg Valentine here. She's our ELL teacher in the district, and Jody Leibowitz, who's our world language department chairperson at the high school. And they've done quite a bit of work here, as you'll see this evening. This is something that's been in the works for quite a while. Like everything else, we were slowed down by the pandemic. But we're ready to move forward, and we're super excited about this opportunity for our high school students. Just another way to be recognized for their achievement, in terms of marketability, post-secondary, in terms of college, in terms of employment. This should open up more doors, for our students. And as you'll hear this evening, we're confident we're going to have quite a few students over time that are going to qualify for the distinction of biliteracy, which is quite an honor. And like I said, they should be recognized for this achievement, and we should be, we're pleased we're going to be able to give them that opportunity. And hopefully this will be an incentive for our youngest learners as well, in terms of their want and desire to study, right, and master the languages, and open up more opportunities for all of our children. So Jody and Meg they're very eager to make this a reality for our students, as we all are at the high school. So I'm happy to turn it over to Meg.
All right.
You should be able to.
I should be able to share?
Yep.
It's telling me that it's disabled. Oh,
I just enabled it.
okay. Just a second. Bella, wait, please. I'm sorry. I'm looking for it. I'm sorry about that. My kiddos are. Thank you. All right. So I will.
We've all been there, Meg.
Try as we might, right? All right. Okay. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to present on the Seal of Biliteracy. We're really excited about this program. So just very quickly, it came about in the Look Act, part of that law that was signed in 2017 for Massachusetts. A number of things were put in place with that, and including this Seal of Biliteracy. So it is an optional program for districts, but we're certainly very excited to participate. And it gives us a chance to officially recognize our graduates who can demonstrate that they're proficient in English and at least one other language, because many of our students are proficient in more than 2 languages. Students will actually get a seal on their diplomas, their transcripts, and there's actually the opportunity for a seal of biliteracy and then one with distinction. All right, so this slide shows you how many districts are currently participating across the Commonwealth. So we're going to be in good company. We'll join lots of other districts who have come before us. And so this was put into place because, first of all, we want to recognize the hard work that it takes to actually become proficient in multiple languages, right? Especially when you're talking about more than just social language, but also academic language. And so we know that our English learners and students who aren't English learners, but do have a home language that's other than English, our students who are world language learners have worked really hard to get to a certain level of biliteracy. And we want to recognize that. And also take the time to recognize the diversity of languages. I mean, we've presented to Kristen before, we have many, many languages represented in our small town of Lynnfield. So we're very proud of that. And we also want to encourage students to be multilingual. I mean, in part because it's a benefit for them as they look for jobs in the future. So it is any eligible student, and I will talk about eligibility in a minute, can participate regardless of what the home language is. So we have a way to accommodate any home or heritage language, so everyone could participate. I mean, it just gives us a chance to acknowledge that these students are proficient at a level that allows them to be in real life situations and actually use multiple languages in a working environment, and to be able to use that in professional settings too.
Right, so if you look at the language proficiency and what students can actually do with the language spontaneously, they're going to be in the intermediate high to get the seal of biliteracy, which means they're above just surviving in the language. They're not quite to the storyteller level, but they're well above being able. Intermediate is at the survivor. They're creating sentences, they can answer questions, but they're well above that. And then if we go to the next slide, you could see that to get the seal of biliteracy with distinction, they are at the advanced low, which does put them basically in the storyteller area of being able to use the language, which is really pretty impressive of language skills. And to be able to do that in 2 languages is something that we really want to recognize, because this is a skill that, you know, not that many people have. It's really pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yes. So how do students earn it? We are, you know, it's open to students who will graduate. So you do need to be able to meet all graduation requirements. And then you have to meet the minimum scores for meeting on MCAS, and those numbers 240 or 472 does depend on which MCAS you took. And if for our English learners, you could also count the access test that they take every year. So that 4.2 overall score is also the minimum score that students would need to exit ESL services. But that access also works as a demonstration that the student is proficient in English at that level that we are expecting for the seal of biliteracy. And then finally, we're going to ask students whether they're world language speakers or heritage language speakers to demonstrate that level of proficiency on a standardized test called STAMP. So again, they would need that high intermediate. So the STAMP test very quickly is approved by DESE. We would be able to administer it during the school day. And I just showed you again where we're looking for students to be in terms of language. Now, as I said, the STAMP test actually has a huge number of languages that they can test for. However, there are certainly heritage languages that may not have a standardized test. And so for those languages, students would be able to create a portfolio that would demonstrate all of the ways in which they're proficient at that level. And it includes members of the community who are also native speakers of that language. So that whatever your language is, we can accommodate it and find a way to evaluate it and allow you to demonstrate your proficiency. So in terms of districts, we've already started the process. So we would be required to send out a letter to everyone in the district, and we have one ready to go. We'll have a site on our website asking students to apply for the seal of biliteracy, and then of course administer STAMP test or work on a portfolio. And then once students are determined to be proficient and deserving of the seal of biliteracy, then we would make sure to have that seal actually on their diploma. And we would find ways to celebrate the student's success kind of publicly too for the community.
Sorry. So the value of the seal, what do the students get out of it and what do their families get out of it? The students can get college credit at participating institutions. I am pretty sure Salem State participates in this. And I'm sure there will be many more institutions which start participating in this, giving them college credit for this. Also, they have the ability to put Massachusetts only legal recognition of biliteracy on resumes, and it validates their home language as an asset. And the families we get to, hopefully at graduation, we will acknowledge maybe with a cord on their graduation robe, announcing it when they graduate, different ways to acknowledge that they have earned this, that it is really something special, and that it's quite an achievement.
So we're very excited. I think we're ready, I think, to roll this out and to welcome anybody who is eligible. And I think it's a terrific opportunity for us to acknowledge all of the hard work that it takes to be proficient at that level in multiple languages.
That's great. Thank you very much. Let me open it up to questions. I know I have a couple, but Phil?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, first off, and I'd love this shift to the asset-based mindset that the seal of biliteracy actually is, certainly from the state standpoint, because I've been working with EL students myself for a good 22 years now, and it's having two languages is not always considered to be an asset. So that was a big shift, like a sea change, I think, for the state, and that's definitely in the right direction. I've just got one little question about the standardized testing piece. Is it MCAS and access, or MCAS or access that they need to pass?
So it's or. But with the idea that if you are able to achieve that score on access, that you would be proficient as well on your MCAS, on the ELA specifically.
Right, okay. And I think it's fantastic we're going to be able to offer this to basically every world language that is spoken amongst the families in our community. So thank you so much for that. I just wanted to clarify that one little piece. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have two questions. First of all, are we thinking, I assume this is a start for next year? It's too late in the year to start for this year, or is that?
No, we're going to start it this spring. We're hoping to start it this spring.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've done some legwork, and this has been in the works for a couple of years. I think we had to put it on pause last year, of course.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And any idea about how many students will be able to take advantage of it this year?
No, I think I think Jody and I have students in mind, and certainly I'll be looking to my students with that expectation. But no, we don't have an idea right now.
That's great. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Well, Meg and Jody, thank you very much for this. This is exciting for the district.
Thank you.
All right. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. All right. Let's move on. Kristen, do you want to pull up the calendar and we can start that conversation?
Yes, I will. Give me just 1 second here.
Jody and Meg, you can
Jody, right?
You can certainly stay, but you don't feel like you have to.
Thank you both.
Can we all see that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so as we know, every year we present a draft calendar, and then this calendar will be voted and approved by the committee at a later meeting. So as you can see here, the first day of school for pre-K through 12 will be September 1st. And it will be a normal school year. We are planning for a normal opening of school for all of our students on September 1, which is very exciting to say that that's what we will be working for. So everyone can plan for that for September 1st. You may notice that Rosh Hashanah is on September 7th, and we traditionally do not have school on that day to observe that holiday. That normally would have been the first day back after Labor Day. So what we have done is we have a half early release day on the 3rd, Friday the 3rd, as opposed to a day off from school. So it's a half day. And then you'll see the 6th is Labor Day, and then the 7th is the observance of Rosh Hashanah. So school will commence again on the 8th, Wednesday the 8th. And then another something else to point out to the committee is that if we go all the way back down into June, right, with the 5 school days, our last day of school would be June 24th. You will notice that June 20th is marked as an observance of the Juneteenth day, which is newly put into new law by Governor Baker this past summer. So that's an observance. So Juneteenth would be actually the 19th. So the observance would be June 20th. So if for some reason we had, snow days, right, that went beyond, had a couple of days, that would be actually, we would not have school. We'd have to bump it to the 21st. Any questions? Anything that you have questions about? It's fairly straightforward, very similar to calendars in the past.
Kristen, did we create a 4-day, what is effectively a 4-day weekend in November with professional development and?
Yes, we actually did move that. We made the 12th professional development day. So we moved that actually off of the 2nd, which was election day.
Yep.
Yes.
And we're going to have 1 day of conferences in November. I feel like we've had 2 in the past. Or am I?
So the
Someone correct.
18th is just not marked here.
Okay.
As a conference, the 18th. We can, I'll mark that. We'll color that in, but it's on there. If you look on the side, do you
Yep.
see it? Yep.
Yeah, it's in the notes.
Yep.
Yep.
I see it there. I think really the only discussion that we need to have, and I can certainly give my opinion on this, is we've talked about, and especially after this year, do we want to move to remote days in lieu of snow days and eliminate those snow days? I will tell you that my preference would be to keep them in, build them into the calendar, and if there's a way to solve for some of those technologically, we can certainly do that and save it at the time. But I just feel like, we saw it this year, and kids just needed a break for some of these snow days. It puts extra strain on teachers. So that's my feeling on that. I don't know if anyone else on the committee has a strong feeling either way.
So Jamie, I don't believe that that DESE will allow us to do that. That was a one-time for this year. So we would have to wait for guidance from DESE before we could make that decision.
I stand corrected. All right. Rich?
Just one question. Do we know what the last day of school will be for this year?
So right now it's the 21st.
Okay.
June 21st.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
we generally vote on that after March, just in case there's a last minute blizzard, as it hits 70 degrees this week.
Yeah.
All right, well, we will vote on this probably at the next meeting and get it out to everyone. So I don't think there's any surprises on here.
Nope, pretty straightforward.
All right,
All right,
sounds good.
super.
All right, let's keep going. So this is the part that we are adding to the agenda. And congratulations, Kristen, being able
Thank
to
you.
announce return to school on April 5th for everyone, 3 through 12. I know we have a plan to get K1 and 2 in over the next couple of weeks. I know there's still a lot of work to be done and a lot of questions out there, but I figured this would be a good time for you to present this, Tony, to present some of the data that we're seeing along with this. I know the committee has a bunch of questions, but we also understand that some of these questions are still works in progress. So I want to recognize that. The other thing that I just want to communicate to the committee, and I know I've talked to some of you about this. We as a committee have always tried to leverage people's professional and personal experience to their strengths. And the example that I will always point to is when we were going through all of the security enhancements, we asked Rich to be the point person for that for the school committee. Given the deep academic needs, I asked Phil to be the point person for the school committee over the next month as we go through this reopening. So he's going to be working with Kristen and will be communicating with us as needed.
I'm happy and honored to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kristen, there you go.
All right, great. So as you all know, the Board of Education voted on Friday afternoon to amend the time on learning regulations at the request of the Commissioner of Education, Jeff Riley. As a result, both the hybrid and remote learning models will no longer count toward time on learning for the remainder of the school year. This means that our current hybrid model will no longer count toward time on learning. The Commissioner will require grades K through 5 to be back full in person by April 5th, and the middle school to be back full in person by April 28th, and the high school to follow. The staggering of return for the latter grades is intended for districts that have been fully remote for this school year. Since we have been in our hybrid model since September, we do not see a legitimate safety or educational reason for why we should stagger the return of our middle school and high school students. Therefore, we will prepare for a full return of all students in grades 3 through 12 on April 5th. And we are thrilled, right, to be welcoming all of our students back to full in person on April 5th. We are continuing to work with our educators to ensure the safe transition for all. Many of our safety protocols and practices will remain in place, including required mask wearing, social distancing to the greatest extent possible, plastic dividers, one-way hallways, use of outdoor spaces, obviously weather permitting, and staying home when symptomatic. In order for us to continue with full in person, we still need to be diligent in the community with adhering to social gathering limits, mask wearing, and distancing. With the date of April 5th for the full return of students in the district, we are asking parents to commit to either fully remote or full in person for the remainder of the school year. We have asked parents to complete the survey by Friday, March 12th, which is this Friday. So the model of learning on April 5th will be full in person 5 days a week. So the definition of full in person is 5 hours of structured learning time at the elementary level and 5.5 hours of structured learning time at the secondary level for 5 days a week. This is a legal requirement. Hybrid and remote only models will no longer count toward time on learning. This is a substantial programming shift for us. families should expect that we may need to make challenging trade-offs to accommodate full in-person learning. This shift may require changes in learning spaces. For students who have been full remote and choose to stay full remote, the remote learning option may look different than the model offered prior to the implementation of these requirements. The remote option is being allowed by DESE to support our families who have health or safety concerns about sending their students into school at this time. We want families to know that with our decision to return to full in-person and the state requirement of full in-person, remote may look different depending on the grade level. For elementary, we are hiring remote-only teachers for grade levels or combined grade levels, depending on the number of remote learners. We are looking for remote-only teachers also in grades 5 and 6. For grades 7 through 12, remote learners will most likely be able to Zoom into the classroom to hear and see the lesson, and materials will be shared via Google Classroom. We are still working with our teachers on what this will look like, and the total number of remote learners will help us to make this decision, which is why we've asked parents to respond to us by Friday. We also want parents to understand that the full in-person will not look like it did before the pandemic. There will be sanitizing, there will be masks required, there will be no group work, there won't be any lockers, there will be one-way hallways, there will be distancing at lunch, right? All of those things will, all the mitigation strategies, all that we have been doing all fall will still be in place. So it will look different than it has before than it did before the pandemic. Also, we want parents to know that, and I know that Sarah Perkins sent something out just the other day concerning elementary beds and leads in conjunction with our return to full in-person. We will also be offering the middle school club and also music lessons. And so Sarah will be sending something out to parents about that so that they can sign up for either if you have middle school children or signed up for in-person music lessons starting in April. With this, as we know, their MCAS is on the horizon, right? And as on Friday, the Department of Elementary and Secondary did send out some amendments to the MCAS schedule. So what we know is that grades 3, 4, and 5 will still be taking the MCAS in April and May. And for grades 6, 7, and 8, as of Friday, they put them on to be determined. So we do not know what that will look like for grades 6, 7, and 8. For our high school students, the MCAS will still be taking place in May and in June. So if we learn anything more, we will certainly let parents know, and any details in terms of when students will be taking the MCAS will be sent out via building principals. All right, COVID, some more COVID specific in terms of what this means, right? In terms of our kids coming back. And so there's some information we want parents to be aware of, right? And so Tony might chime in here as I work through this part. So DESE guidance, which they just sent out some fairly specific guidance this afternoon. Guidance is 3 feet of distancing in classrooms and more if feasible. We may be moving classroom spaces depending on the number of students in a class. So in order to meet the 3 feet, depending if there are class sizes that may be larger, and that is particularly at the middle school and high school, we may have to move the classroom space in order to accommodate the 3 feet. As we move to less than 6 feet with full in-person, we will have more students identified as close contacts, as the close contact guidance and definition has not been updated to less than 6 feet. We will be amending our close contact protocol so that students who are quarantined, who may be a close contact, may return to full in-person sooner than they have in the past. So we will send out the updated guidance on that starting with the return of our first graders. So we will send that out to parents and we will post it on the dashboard as well when that's updated, as well as the COVID handbook. With the new full in-person, right? So if a student are quarantined or a close contact or symptomatic, they will join the remote only class at the elementary level and be given the link to join classes via Zoom at the middle or high school level. This time will count towards structured learning time for these students. It is important that families continue to keep children home when symptomatic or a close contact so that we can continue to keep positive individuals out of our schools. And we know that that has worked very well for us all year, right? That our parents have been so amazingly diligent with keeping their children home when they've been symptomatic or when they have been identified as close contacts, that has really kept our schools open and kept our schools virus free. So we ask parents to continue that, particularly as we move to bringing in more students at closer distancing in our classrooms. It's very important. If there is evidence of the virus in the schools, we will work with DESE and the emergency management team. So now that full in-person is a legal requirement, any change to that model, we would have to go back to DESE for that. So we will have to continue to work with the way that we have been working all year and using our mitigation strategies, using contact tracing, dealing with individual case-by-case situations and making decisions the way we've been making them all fall. Traveling in April, right? We know that April vacation is coming up, right? What does this mean now, right? So we did update our travel policy. It was in what I sent out yesterday. It is also on the dashboard and it's also in the COVID handbook. So we are reverting to the Massachusetts travel order, and which means that families, individuals, students would need to provide a negative test before returning to work or to school. We also have in our travel policy that students under the age of 10 will need to still provide a negative test, because we do know that students under the age of 10 can test positive for COVID. So we're asking that parents comply with that. And we will begin a FAQ. So a lot of this information that I just went through, we will putting this into an FAQ, and we will continue to add to it as we get questions. We will put it on our dashboard on the COVID, up in the COVID dashboard. We'll put it on our website for parents as well. And then the last is just that details concerning the full return of our students at each grade level and at each school will be communicated directly by building principals. So as we continue to work through all of what needs to happen and be done for the safe return of our students, it will be communicated at the building level. So it is hugely imperative that parents please read and pay attention to communications that either come from the district or come from your building principals, so that we can safely return all of our students back to school on April 5th. Any questions?
Any questions? Phil?
I'm muted. Just one quick clarification with the that change in distancing. It's changed between it's not 3 feet between desks. It's 3 feet between the center of each chair, right?
It's actually I believe it's the edge of the chair.
Oh,
to the edge of the chair. Yes.
Right. Okay. So
Yes.
that's a definite change.
Yep.
And I guess my other question would be probably more for Tony. Could you go over a little bit about the most recent data about how, spread between students doesn't seem to have really been a thing?
Yeah, sure. So, from the beginning of the school year, right, we've been just continuing to accumulate, loads of data on our close contacts. And as we've, said many times on here, we have no evidence of in-school transmission. And we have no evidence of, like I said, any of our close contacts of positive individuals we've had in the building while infectious. None of those students have come back positive. So that's, what makes us very confident moving forward with even, pushing in on the distance 2-3 feet, that we will continue to see the same trend that we had from the beginning, right? So not only our data that we have in Lynnfield supports that, but there's also, lots of documentation from CDC, from local, pediatricians, local health experts, the Harvard School of Medicine, lots of science and data to support what we are also seeing here locally. And we'll continue to track that, right, as we move forward. So we will continue to monitor all the close contacts that we're seeing at 3 feet now. As we move in, most of our classrooms will be at 3 feet. So as Kristen said, our close contacts obviously, will increase, right, for 2 reasons, because we're moving into 3 feet from the 6, and also we don't have the hybrid model anymore, right, which is really what has kept our positive students from being in the building while infectious. They're essentially be out of school for 5 days and only in for 2. So there was a big window there where that you wouldn't have them in the school building while infectious, but now they will always be in the school building, right? So that just will increase our close contacts as well. Again, we're confident that we will still continue to see no spread. It's just, will be the inconvenience a bit of having to be out in quarantine, which is why, like Kristen said, we are gonna, pull back on our quarantine guidelines so we can have the students, miss as little school as possible, while also obviously making sure everyone's healthy and being out for a period of time that is sufficient to do so and to keep people safe. So there's lots of things we'll continue to look at on the way and monitor any changes as we see them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Kristen, Jamie, I got a question.
Yeah, I was pointing at you that. Really
thank you. For the high school and a little bit at the middle school, will Steve and Bob articulate policies and protocols for campus behavior, meaning outside of the building after school? The expectations set there, particularly as the spring comes and they tend to hang around outside a little bit more, etc.
Yes, I think that's a great reminder for both. It's going to be tempting, right, to be hanging together and in large groups, but we all know that we have seen some spread in gatherings, right, and we want to keep we want our high school and middle school students to continue to come to school, to participate in graduations and special events that they have coming up. So I think that's always a great reminder. Absolutely.
Stacy.
Thank you. So along the same vein, you mentioned, Kristen, that they will not be allowed to use the lockers. And, I assume that's so they're not going to kind of congregate in the hallway. And
correct.
Such.
Right.
I'm just wondering, if it's something that we could, look at maybe at, like, say, the 5th grade level where their loads are significant, or, and that's something obviously maybe we can take offline and discuss with Stephen, but just maybe some thought to that.
Absolutely. Yep.
I understand that makes sense and the reasoning for that.
Yeah.
And then just another question specific to the buses, which I know, we have their separate guidance from DESE on that. And, interested in knowing, and Tony, maybe this is a question for you, but, the buses, and we'll talk about the policy in a little while, but the buses, presumably will be more full than they have been. Will students be assigned seats? Will there be, bus monitors, that sort of thing, where, buses may, be a little more crowded and kids just kind of will tend to get a little more rambunctious, that sort of thing. So just wondering about bus protocols.
So we actually, we did not assign seats in the fall. We made a decision to not do that. It was really difficult to do that just because of how the routes were to go. So adding additional students would make that even more challenging to do so. We do have cameras on the buses, so that allows us to, we can go back and look at cameras if we need to identify when we're looking at close contacts, if there are close contacts on the bus, right? We haven't actually had that because we've had so few students riding the buses. We have not had to identify any close contacts on buses. Certainly, if more students do choose to take the bus, that will change, right? And we will have to use the cameras to do that. We don't have plans to hire bus monitors, but certainly if we felt that we needed to, if we got to the position, we would certainly explore that.
Thank you.
Kristen, while we're on buses, Rich, I see you, but just while we're staying on buses, can you just talk a little bit about I know buses have not been utilized heavily during the first half of the year. And there is one of the concerns going into this is going to be drop off and pick up and the lines. And we've all seen them on non-pandemic days, and especially at the middle school and the elementary schools. So can you just talk a little bit about preference for sending kids on the bus if possible?
Yes, so if the committee votes this evening to revert to our previous bus policy, which was 1 mile for elementary, 1.5 for middle, and 2 miles for the high school, we very much encourage families to put their children on the buses, right? I know that many have been driving their children, right? Because we have had this different bus policy. We are asking that you please make use of the buses if the policy does change. We have already noticed an increase in traffic just with our kindergarten students coming back to full in person. So we know that adding all of our students back is only going to increase it. So we really are asking very much for parents to put their children on the buses to get them to school. It really is going to help tremendously in terms of getting kids into school on time and getting our families out of school parking lots in a timely manner and safely, right? So having all these cars can create some safety concerns as well. So we will continue to send information out to families about busing, please reminding to please take the bus, please take the bus, please take the bus.
And just to confirm, if we go down to the old bus routes and everyone were to take a bus, we would still be compliant with the DESE
We would.
regs, correct?
We would, correct. Mhm.
Okay.
We would.
Stacy?
Would, so bus routes would not necessarily change, but there may or may not be additional stops, or I mean, that may be a lot of, details and logistics still to be worked out, but
The plan is actually to revert to the routes that we had last year.
okay.
So we would revert to those routes, right? So that's what it would be based on. Mhm. We would go to those stops. So we would, Mrs. Ryan would send out all, once it's, if we're on board here, then she will send that information out. I think that we would plan for to start this when the first graders start on March 15th if possible. So which would be next week, right? Next Monday.
Thank you.
Rich?
Sure, just to stick with busing, if I could. We've always shared the routes with the local news media. And
Yep.
while this may not be a first day of school and it may not be August, it's going to feel like a first day of school.
Yep.
So I
It is.
would
Yep.
offer that recommendation.
Yes. Excellent. Yes. Thank you.
Another,
Mhm.
Yep, another topic I wanted to follow up with what Tim had asked. With the protocols and mitigations that we're going to have in place in the building, as students arrive and depart each of the buildings, they're still expected to wear a mask.
Oh, yes.
The mask is not just an in the building
No.
requirement. It
Correct.
should be the entire time they're on the property
Correct.
or on their
Yes.
bus. Yep, great.
Absolutely. It's required on the buses. Absolutely. Right. Required on school property. Mhm.
Great. And I had the good fortune today to take up some of Mr. Ralston's time at the middle school just to ask him about lunch. We've got some questions about lunch and how it's occurring at the middle school. And if to attempt to explain the depth of thought he put in to having lunch be successful in a hybrid model, and then now to ramp that up to the excitement that he has for the full return of everybody on April 5th is incredible. He explained some of the changes that he's been able to make over the last week with opening some lockers for towels to be brought in should the kids, when the kids get to start having I'm going to call it a picnic lunch outside. when they get to start to eat outside, as well as the gym space that's being utilized. And he also now is providing chairs to those students that will utilize the gym on an every other week basis. And I asked him the simple question of why can't those students in the gym have lunch at a table? And he with great depth explained that in order for, well, he explained that there couldn't be tables. It would have to be individual desks. And then he said that the setup for that to occur would bring on the nullification of PE, of gym. And that was not a trade-off he was willing to give. He further explained how many students he could fit in the CAF successfully. He's going to expand if a team, so it'd be the two teams, the 2-team basis that they have on each grade at the middle school. He explained that should a team who is assigned to the cafeteria 1 week, it has overflow, that he will be fully prepared with the auditorium space for those children to successfully have lunch space, because we all know that lunch is still a 6-foot spacing requirement. So I just want to make everybody aware that again, the thought that he has put into this for the safety of our kids to have lunch in that 6 foot of spacing. One last question I had is, can you share the cleaning protocols that'll happen during the school day while the buildings are full, as well as, so I fully understand that as a child leaves a classroom, they would be expected to wipe down their desk with wipes that would be provided, so that as they leave a classroom, it's clean, and as they arrive in a new classroom, it would be clean. But if you could just explain beyond that what maybe the janitorial staff would be doing regarding cleaning with, again, a full building. And then if you could add on top of that, what will the hand washing opportunities be for those students during the school day?
So we have, the town has graciously hired part-time a cleaning company to help support our custodians in that process. So currently with for example, with our kindergartners starting in this week, we have, with all of with at least 20 children in a classroom, and they have, as you all know, they have their own bathroom, that the cleaning company goes in the middle of the day and cleans that bathroom. So that bathroom gets cleaned a couple different times during the school day because it's getting used so much more, right? They also, when there is a kindergarten classroom that may have to eat lunch, it rotates through. They all can't fit in the APR, as we know. So there is a classroom that will eat in their classroom that gets wiped down by the lunch monitor. Whoever's in the classroom with the children will wipe down all the desks when they are done eating. That will be the same practice in all of our elementary classrooms as we bring first graders in, second graders, and then third and fourth, right? We are going to have to do a rotation between eating in classrooms and some kids eating in the APR. There will be lunch monitors in those classrooms, and they will do the same. They will wipe down the desks after the children are done eating. We have the cleaning company also coming in and staying in our buildings to help with just the overall disinfecting of surfaces, right? We have been doing an amazing job, the custodial staff, of doing that all year, and they will continue to do that. And we have added in additional support for them to help with that, right? Because they're just going to be more surfaces are going to be touched, right? Having more children in. And Rich, as you pointed out, at the upper grades, the students, when they change, they wipe their desk down right before they move. And that is such a routine for kids. They have that down, and that will be a very important mitigation strategy for them to continue. In terms of hand washing, certainly at the lower grades, it's going to be building that routine into everyday practice, right? They do, when they've been coming in the hybrid, they have a good schedule and routine of washing their hands. They will just be doing that now every day, right? And it's going to take longer because there's double the number of students, right? So the teachers are working that into their schedules. At the upper grades, we do have hand sanitizer dispensing systems almost outside of every single classroom, right? In hallways, outside of cafeterias, in foyers. So, it's amazing when you see the routines that the sort of the cleaning routines that the kids have for themselves as well as for the building. It's really amazing how it just is something, it's just part of what they do when they're in school now. So we're feeling pretty good about it, and we'll just make changes if we need to. If we need to make changes, if we need to add more cleaning staff, we will.
So it's funny, all this talk we're now doing regarding the janitorial staff, and this isn't something I expected to talk about, but no, I just I think I'd be remiss in talking about the great work the janitorial staff is doing, and if we didn't mention Dave LeBlanc, and that we lost him suddenly last week, and Dave was just one of those guys that would do anything for you if you needed anything to be done, whether you were a student, a teacher, or maybe a PTO member, that happened to be in the building. And I just want to say thank you for everything he's done, and obviously all our best thoughts for his family.
Thank you, Rich. Stacy?
Thank you. So sorry, I do have a few more questions. So one of which is, and I think we touched upon it at one of our previous meetings, but was, and Rich, I think you had mentioned it with respect to students, and, obviously there's going to be excitement, but there may, very likely also be some nerves, some anxiety, so in terms of the social and emotional stresses, if you will, of, for, going back to school, right? I know we have the adjustment counselors, the guidance counselors, the staff, the resources there, but is there anything in particular that, the building principals and the staff is doing to kind of, I don't want to say gear up for, but, prepare for, some anxieties and some concerns that may, come from going back to school?
Yes, so in 2 weeks at our meeting on the 23rd, all of the school adjustment counselors will be coming to the meeting, and they will be talking about and sharing information with parents around strategies to begin thinking about this process, this transition, right? So, if we have students who have been full remote and are now coming back into schools, we may have students who have, if they are 5th graders, have never been in the middle school, or if they're 9th graders, have not been in the high school. And certainly, at the building level, those building principals are more than happy to work with those families if the child would like to come and see the building, right? Or would like a video tour, anything that we can do to help with that transition, we are more than happy to do. So the adjustment counselors will they're pulling together some resources and suggestions and strategies for parents that, one thing that we as a leadership team have been talking about, and we certainly have been talking a lot about this as well, Stacy, is the concern around school stamina is what I call it, right? That we, our students have been, since for the last year, have not had a regular 5-day-a-week, right, school day. And that, as we know, with every beginning of every school year, for both teachers and students, there's a transition. There's a full solid week of pure 100% exhaustion on everyone's part, trying to get back into getting our bodies, our brains, getting back onto routines and schedules, getting up at a certain time, right, getting out the door, all that comes with that. So that's going to take some transition. So the more that parents can do in the next month to begin to prepare students for that, the better and easier the transition will be. So building those habits of mind, putting in place real structures and consistency with nighttime routines, with morning routines, even in the hybrid, start getting kids up out of bed at the normal time that you would to get ready for school. I would even say, saying you need to get out of your pajamas, you need to put on some school clothes or what you would wear to school, right? Get up, get dressed, right? Sit at the counter, have some breakfast, and if it just means you're going to the dining room to go on Zoom, but this is your school day, right? So I think starting that now will help with making it easier when it comes to April 5th. So as at the building level, we will reach out to parents, right? If parents reach out to us and have concerns, if we have concerns, we will reach out to parents, and that dialogue and communication, right? If parents are nervous or concerned, they should reach out to the building principals, and we can connect them with the resources and help them to support them in this process.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mhm.
I have one more question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Keep going.
So, and again, some of this is, it may almost be too soon, but just thinking to like our 4th graders, 8th graders, obviously the high school seniors, and these momentous occasions, moving on, high school graduation, prom, etc. And I wasn't sure if we, have any thought in terms of, if some of these things may occur, or when, how, or still somewhat TBD.
So we are actively making plans. We're working with the PTOs at both of the elementaries. And I know that Mr. Ralston is working with his PTO on a moving on ceremony graduation for 8th graders. And I know that Mr. Cleary is as well, with working with his senior class officers and advisors on planning for some special senior events as well as graduation. Of course, we don't know exact numbers of people that we will be allowed to have at these events, and we'll be waiting some guides to come from DESE. I believe the commissioner said he thought sometime in April that we would hopefully receive something, but we also know that the state phasing is changing on the 22nd, so we may get some more information that will help us with that as well at that time. So some of it is to be determined, but it will look very different than last year. I can say that, right? There will be some in-person component to it. I think we can assume everything will be outside, so everything will have to have a rain date, because we can't bring large groups of people inside, but we are so looking forward to being able to do these types of special ceremonies for our students and our families in person. It's going to be great.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the committee? I just have a couple that we haven't touched upon. One of which is, and I had a couple of preschool parents ask me about, are there going to be any substantial changes to preschool? And I think specifically the one question that I got a couple times is, are we going to transition the afternoon preschool back to a 5-day program now that we're letting kids back into the schools on Wednesday afternoons?
So so what will be happening, Dr. Dwyer and Roberta King will be sending a letter to the preschool parents this week. So what will happen when we shift to full in person is, traditionally in the past, they did not have Monday afternoon was a planning time for the preschool. And they will now have it on Wednesday mornings. So instead of on Mondays, it'll be on Wednesdays. So they will add in a Wednesday afternoon session for preschool. That will be the added session that will happen, will be Wednesday afternoon.
Rich?
A question I forgot to ask is regarding the community schools program at the senior center. Does that end with the return of full in person?
Yes, it does. Yep, it does. Right. And we'll be shifting to, beds and leads in the middle school club, as well as the music lessons and perhaps some other programs as well this spring.
That's great. A couple other things that have come up, and Tony, I would look to your guidance for this one. We've had a very, very strict no visitor policy at all of the schools throughout COVID. My assumption is that we're going to keep that no visitor policy, at least for the immediate time being. But I don't know if we've thought about that yet.
Yes, so actually there is a little bit of guidance in what came out from DESE today, that they are recommending that you continue to not allow large numbers of visitors into your building, and we will continue to do that. As you know, we do have limited visitors that do come in. So for example, at the middle school with Chromebooks, we do have sometimes where there is a need for people to come in to exchange Chromebooks. But that will be the extent of what we have in terms of visitors in our buildings.
Yep. Rich, I keep prompting other questions.
Yes, so now that you mentioned Chromebooks, as we know, every student has been issued a Chromebook this year. Will students just keep those in case of remote days in the fall, or will we have a plan to have them be returned at the end of the school year?
We actually haven't completely decided what we're going to do. We're still in discussions about that. So it could go either way.
And then the last question that I have two more questions. One of which is, I know there are just going to be a lot of operational questions at a building level. I mean, it's inevitable with something like this. Realistically, for parents, how often should they be expecting communication and updates from the building principal? And what is the cadence for when they should reach out?
I mean, I would say that in the next, so certainly the first benchmark for us will be Friday, right, with getting the survey results back. So that will certainly help us with the next week in terms of continuing to work out, what remote learning is going to look like, hiring remote teachers at the elementary, whether we're going to have one for each grade or whether they're combined, right? So I would say that certainly within a couple weeks, they should expect some sort of an update to come. Some of this stuff doesn't move as fast as we would like it to, right? And it takes a little bit longer. So I would say in a couple weeks to expect something, so which would be sort of the halfway before we start, right? So I think the halfway mark before we come back, and then I would say very close to that week before to expect any final details that parents would need to know for reentry to come that week right before.
Yep. Yeah, I just think that the more we're communicating, the better. This is a time to over communicate. It's what we did it's what we tried to do in the spring last year when this hit, and be transparent about what we know and what we don't know and what we're learning. I think there's going to be a whole new set of questions that come those first 2 weeks in April. So we will continue to figure it out. Stacy.
Yes, thank you. So Jamie, to your point about visitors, it actually made me think of Kristen, we had solicited parents to sign up and get worried, for coverage for teacher vaccinations. I was just curious, if we had received, parent volunteers for that.
We did. We actually had almost 33 volunteers, which was wonderful. I would say about a handful or so have both their queries and their fingerprints in. Those names were shared with building principals in case they need to reach out to them for any coverage for a teacher who needs to run out for a vaccine appointment. So yeah, so thank you to all the parents who emailed us and let us know. It's really terrific. It's super helpful to have those resources.
Awesome. Thank you to everyone who did that. Thank you.
Tony, I don't know if we have this information. I know that I read that 25,000 teachers have been vaccinated or had a first vaccination through CVS, and I know the state website is opening up for teachers on Thursday. Do we have any way of tracking what percentage of our teachers have gotten a first vaccination and or are fully vaccinated?
Yep. So we're actually in the process of doing that. We have the school nurses, each nurse at each of the schools is going to keep track of that for us. So we're going to, Mary Holman is going to be sending out an email to the staff to let them know that they should report in to their building nurse. We'll be tracking their doses and when they'll be fully vaccinated by, and then we will be able to, have accurate data as to how, what the percentage of our staff members are that are vaccinated as a district and in any given building. So we are doing that. We started that today.
Thank you. Rich?
So I just didn't want to be remiss. I'm sure we all got the Code Red phone call
Yes.
today or email that there is now going to be another town-wide vaccination clinic occurring on Thursday with sign up for that starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow, in which any of our teachers who happen to be Lynnfield residents would be eligible to sign up.
Correct. Yep.
That's great.
It seems like a lot of our teachers, just from what I've been hearing, that they have already actually been able to get their first vaccines. Even CVS kind of opened up a little bit earlier than 11, just because they're part of that federal pharmacy program. So they were able to start a little bit ahead of the state's mass vaccination sites. So I honestly was surprised at how many teachers were already able to get their vaccines over the past week, which is great. And a lot of them have gotten the Johnson & Johnson, and that's just the one dose. So even better.
That's fantastic. Well, a lot of information and a lot of information still to come. So thank you for all you're doing. Thank the administrative leadership team from all of us. It's been 362 days since this started, and there's finally a light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you.
There is. Yes. Thank you.
All right. With that, let's transition over to, I believe the budget is next on the agenda. So do you want to set this up, Kristen and Tom, or do you want us to give a little bit of context?
I've never done this before, so I defer to any of you who've done this before. So.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, as a member of the budget subcommittee, this process has been a little bit different than it has in previous years. It's certainly been shifted. It's been shifted back to later in the year because town meeting has moved from April to June. So, what I would tell people as we go through this, this is a process. This is an iterative process, and anyone who has paid attention to it in previous years knows that we go through as a committee. The superintendent and director of finance will make their presentation tonight with recommendations, and this is, again, it's the first step in a multi-step process. There will be opportunities for FinCom to weigh in. There will be opportunities for the Board of Selectmen to weigh in, and we will have a public budget hearing. So I would just say listen through this evening, hear where we are, hear what all the needs are, and what we're going to be talking about, what some of the challenges the district faces from a financial standpoint, and then we will again begin what is an iterative process of getting to a final number that aligns with the needs of the town and the needs of the school district.
All right, am I okay to share my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Oops. All right. All right. So thank you, Jamie, for doing the introduction to this process. So before I start my presentation on the 2021-2022 school budget, I want to thank Tom Geary, Roberta Keene, and Stephanie Hoban and the rest of the ALT for their hours of work, feedback, and input on this presentation. As you all know, this is my first time doing this presentation as superintendent, and there was much to learn as I prepared this presentation, and the ALT was instrumental in this learning. So as Jamie mentioned, this is the budget process that we go through in Lynnfield. So starting tonight with the school committee presentation, I will then make the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee. There will be a budget hearing, and then finally the vote at town meeting on the final budget. So as we prepared this budget, we focused on the needs and supports of our most important assets, our students. They are our why. It is also important in this process that we use our district mission and vision statements, our district strategy, and this year our 10 poles as the roadmap for budget decisions and recommendations. So here's a slide, just a reminder of our district strategy, right? Building leadership capacity, educator growth, curriculum and assessment, assessment and accountability, and social emotional wellness. And then here are our 10 poles, right? That we developed as a leadership team. Also, we refer to them as our core values: safety and well-being of students, relationships, equity, and academic growth. And the way that we look at this is that if you look at the tent poles, they are holding up the tent, and the tent is the district strategy. So they are holding it up. And then we used guiding questions. So does the proposed budget support our district strategy, mission, and vision, and the tent poles? Our students, right? Our most important assets. Does the proposed budget meet the ongoing academic, social, and emotional and mental health needs of our students? And is the proposed budget fiscally responsible? So I think it's important for us to talk about the academic distinctions that we've had this year, as well as some of our extracurricular accomplishments. So knowing that this has been a pandemic, it has looked a little bit differently, but despite the pandemic, our students have excelled both in and outside of the classroom. So Lynnfield High School has been ranked 11th best high school in Massachusetts by US News and World Report, which was reported in May of 2020. We had one student recognized as a College Board National Hispanic Recognition. 3 students were recognized as National Merit Commended students. We had 20 students named AP Scholars in 2020, 17 AP Scholars with honors, 21 AP Scholars with distinction, and 3 National AP Scholars. 176 students took 382 AP exams in the spring of 2020, and that was all done virtually. It's a lot of AP exams to be taken on a computer virtually. 137 juniors took the PSAT in January of 2021. So as you know, we offered the PSAT this January. And we had some students who had some great recognitions in terms of their art. So we had 2 gold keys, 1 silver key, and 4 honorable mentions in the Boston Globe Scholastic Art Contest. And then in terms of extracurricular distinctions, right, in our athletics, as we know, there was no tournament play this year. However, we had 160 athletes participate in fall season 1, 145 in the winter season, and currently in fall season 2, we have around 175 athletes competing. We also have clubs that have been active this year, right, during the pandemic. So we have the Healthy Lynnfield's Youth Council, which has been incredibly active. They have 21 high school students and 10 middle school students a part of this wonderful club. We have 45 seniors involved with Compass, and that's an organization at the high school that has predominantly worked with our freshmen on freshman orientation and transitions, and it's looked very different this year. So they've really focused their energies on school culture, creating a real positive and inclusive school culture. We have chess club that's been active this year, Best Buddies, a games club where they play board games at the middle school. The high school musical, Anything Goes, has been rehearsing so that they will be doing their musical this May. We've had some digital music concerts, which I know some of you have been able to see, and we've had live streamed coffee houses as well. So it's important that we highlight the social emotional supports that we have been providing this year, right? And certainly we have spent quite a bit of time as a committee talking about this, and this is definitely what has been one of our core values in our tent poles this year. It's also part of our district strategy. So last year, the community supported the addition of 2 school adjustment counselors through this budget process. And as this is a key tenet of our district strategy, we wanted to share where we are in terms of social emotional support. And certainly the pandemic this past year has made the presence of an adjustment counselor at each building so important and essential for our families and teachers, right? So you can see here that certainly we've had real wonderful partnerships with Healthy Lynnfield, the SEAM Collaborative, Middlesex Partnerships for Youth, and the North Shore Education Consortium to also provide professional development as well as resources for our students and families. And as you can see with the successes, we had Rob Evans working with some of our families as well as our teachers this fall. Early and often and intensive supports have been provided with having a school adjustment counselor in each of our buildings this year.
Christine, can I just
Yep.
to clarify there, it's one adjustment counselor at each of the
At
elementary
each building.
schools.
Right.
And
Yes,
it's an important distinction. It took us 3 years to get an adjustment counselor at all of the schools. So we started with the high school 3 years ago. 2 years ago, we requested the middle school and elementary schools, but we were only able to budget for the middle school. And then last year, we ended up getting the two elementary schools, one at each elementary school, which have been invaluable during a pandemic, and I'm sure will be invaluable coming out of a pandemic.
Correct. They will. They'll be very important in this recovery process, and I'm excited for you to hear them all in 2 weeks at the meeting on the 23rd. So the next slide here are what our budget recommendations. So we are recommending the following positions be added: 2 elementary classroom teachers, 1.4 elementary physical education teacher, and 1 middle school reading teacher. So in order to build stronger relationships between teachers and students and provide more effective, consistent academic support for students, we recommend 2 elementary classroom teachers, 1.4 elementary physical education teacher, and 1 middle school reading specialist. The 2 teachers are needed to maintain the class sizes at the elementary as enrollment continues to increase. The community has committed to keeping class sizes at the elementary level between 18 and 22 grades K through grade 2, 23 at grades 2 and 3, and 20 to 24 for grades 4 through 6. We know that keeping class sizes at these numbers allows for our teachers to develop positive relationships with their students and develop a complete understanding of who they are as learners. This is essential to providing each student the best opportunity to grow and find success as a person and a student. All right, there's just a reminder of the what we've sort of all agreed to in terms of what we find is best for our students at each of the different grade levels.
Yeah, and I just, can you go back to that, Kristen?
Yep. Sure.
This is something that we talk about every year, and this is this is something that this committee and this district has held very, very sacred over the years. I think especially as we think about elementary schools getting bigger, making sure that these these classes are at a size that will allow us to maximize learning is something that we have stood by. You know, I can speak for the 7 years that I've been on the committee. Tim can probably speak to this even further back. But I think, you know, especially coming out of a pandemic, these maintaining reasonable class sizes is going to be more important than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Can I
So,
just add something quickly? Sorry.
yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the you know, the foundation of effective teaching is those relationships that teachers build with their students, and it seems to me that these new teaching positions are probably going to be even more essential as we transition back into a post-pandemic world, and we've got to get everybody reconnected again and working together again, so the students can learn to the maximum of their potential as well.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely. So here's a slide that shows the increase in the enrollment that we are anticipating. This is the Summer Street school enrollment for next year, and you can see the what we're anticipating needing, right? An additional classroom for kindergarten, and as you can see, the fourth grade going from 3 classes to 5 classes. So the net being an addition of sorry, I just switched slides on myself here. Sorry about that. A net of 2 additional classes at Summer Street, right? So this is a result of the increasing enrollment that NESDEC had predicted was going to be occurring, right? And we know, and we're seeing it happening, and right, which is why we're adding additions onto both of our schools, right, in order to accommodate the increasing number of elementary students, right? So in order to maintain that class size that we value and feel to be so important for developing those relationships and the learning, right, we need to add these two classroom teachers. So here's the increase, and shows a number of classes that we are anticipating at Huckleberry Hill for next year, and they have an increase of 1 total class here as well. So the reading specialist, actually, I'm just going to back up before I do the reading specialist. Let me just talk a little bit about the 0.4 physical education teachers. So it is actually connected to the increase in the elementary classrooms at each of the buildings. So the 0.4 physical education teacher at the elementary level is needed in order to offer physical education classes to the additional students at each building that is a result of the increase in enrollment. We currently have a 0.6 physical education teacher that splits between 2 schools. This will make the position full-time and will continue to be split between both schools. This position also allows us to meet the contractual obligation we have to providing preparation time for our teachers. So the middle school reading specialist is needed so that we can continue reading services to students who require it per their IEP. As students transition from elementary to middle school, we need to ensure that these services are being met. We want to ensure that our students are set up for success in both middle school and eventually in high school. We currently have a reading tutor that is servicing students at Lynnfield Middle School. This reading tutor position will become the reading specialist. The reading specialist will be able to partner with special educators in a way that allows the special educators to better support the students' access to the general education curriculum.
If I could.
Yes.
Just cover that slide. Does the change to a reading specialist affect any tutoring time that may be given to students presently who may not be on a 504 plan or an IEP?
No, this is different, right? So the reading tutors that we currently have will remain, right? This is a different position currently than those reading tutors. So this particular reading tutor does provide specific services, reading services and supports. This reading specialist would be focused on providing those specialized reading services to students.
Thank you.
So the next two slides speak to our special education out of district, as well as special education transportation. So as a district, we believe that it is imperative that we provide individual services in the least restrictive environment to the maximum extent that is appropriate and will empower our students to be successful. The services and supports that we provide our students are dependent on their individual needs as learners. In some circumstances, in order to meet their learning needs so that they can be successful students, they need to receive their supports outside of the district. This chart reflects the cost of supporting our students. This increase is reflective of the complexity of each learner's needs to include behavioral, social, emotional, and academic. The next slide is out of district transportation. So as the needs of our students become more complex, our transportation costs similarly increase. So certainly technology as we know, we will be requesting, as you'll see at the end, a capital investment from the town of $250,000 that they have graciously given us each year to be used towards technology. And certainly this year we have been very technology heavy in all that we have been doing, right, in our hybrid model. So this year we had to purchase document cameras, web cameras, additional Chromebooks, increased our bandwidth to commercial grade, and purchase digital subscriptions in order to live stream in our hybrid model starting in September. We used the capital allocation we received from last year's budget to purchase these technology items that we needed in order to support the learning in our hybrid model. In order for us to maintain an environment for our students and teachers that supports excellent teaching and learning, we need to continue to update our Chromebook inventory as part of scheduled replacement. We also need to replace very outdated projectors and smart boards with flat panels. And we also need to maintain our infrastructure, such as our access points and our firewall. So the request for the $250,000 is to do all that so that we can maintain this excellent environment for teaching and learning. And then finally, our budget summary. Whoop, sorry about that. I didn't mean to jump that quickly. So our appropriation request is $28,494,647. Our capital request for technology is $250,000, which is a proposed increase of 6.92%. So we feel strongly that this budget and our recommendation reflects our needs as a district to support the success of all of our students and allow our teachers to continue to excel in the classroom. This budget as presented is a level serviced budget. We also know that that this budget, that we may have to go back, right, and revisit this budget. And certainly we will do that if we so need to, but we believe that this is a level service budget at this time. Any questions?
Rich.
So having had a chance to review this, as Jamie had said, this is the start of
Yes.
a process. This is a draft of the start of our process. In that 6.9% what part of that is the increase of the teacher contract salaries that required for?
Overall, the overall teacher contract is a 2.5% contract this year, and then when you include steps and columns, and for the full staff, it's closer to 3.5%.
So 3.5% of that is the
salaries,
the contractual salaries that we have. And then, so I guess if I could, one more question. In the technology that we were able to get for everybody this past year, parts of that came through the CARES Act. Is any of that funding still in play to help us get back through to full in person this year, and then whatever we may need for next year? And you just have to forgive my lack of knowledge on the when that ends, when the cutoff for asking for that money ends.
No problem. There are various, we'll call them buckets in the CARES Act. Some have to be used by this June, some can be carried over by next June. The majority of it has to be used and will be used by this June. But there are some pieces, not a hugely significant amount, but there are some pieces that can roll into next year. But obviously, the further you get away, the intent of it is to bring children back to school. Mm-hmm. So the intent of it is to use it as soon as possible. It's not overly believable to use it in the middle or towards the end of next year when we've already been back to school for a significant amount of time.
Would you anticipate that we're going to get any additional funding next year from either the state or the federal government? Because I know some communities are getting that. Do you anticipate that Lynnfield's going to be one of those?
I think there could be some more. Again, those negotiations are happening. The recent stimulus package that just came out of Washington days ago was more geared towards individuals and things like that. I think the government may take a little time to react to see how schools are doing, see how the speed of vaccines seems to be pretty good now. I think they may take a breath and see how things are going.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
Tom, if we do get more CARES Act money, that usually comes with some kind of link to how you spend it, correct? So it can't be rolled into your operating budget or capital budget, right?
Absolutely.
Segregated, and it's got to be used.
And with most of the CARES Act, again, they've tried to link it directly to pandemic issues, cleaning of schools, technology upgrades, one-time expenses related to the pandemic. It's certainly not the offset a permanent teaching position or something like that. Remote teachers, certainly they're a temporary expense or things like that enhanced our needs in this period of time, but it's certainly not meant to be a long-term expenditure.
Philosophically, Kristen, we've always taken the approach that the absolute last thing we want to cut are teachers, create bigger classes, programming. Where are we in our ability to maintain that philosophy?
So that's a challenge, right? So I mean, as we presented this, right, that as a superintendent, I feel important that that this is a big number, but this is what we need to be level serviced, and to go below that significantly is going to cut its people and programs, right? So in a school system, those are the two P's that we have, right? We are in the people business. And so in order to, when you start looking at cutting below level serviced, it's peoples and programs that will get cut.
Yep. I would say, we need to be prepared to sharpen the pencil. I mean, yep. I think that's going to be, I agree that this is, this is level funding based entirely on our needs and our commitments. And I think that's important. I think we will be, I have no doubt that we'll be asked to sharpen the pencil. So we need to start thinking about that. Mm-hmm. I also just want to, I think one of the things that is important to point out, and if we have PTO presidents who are watching tonight, one of the things where we might be able to get some help, and one of the things that has has created this expense. We hear about a number of smart boards that are that need replacement, and I don't know what the number was. Was it 14 or more?
Yeah, it's around, yeah, around 13 of them that are really outdated.
So our PTOs have always been very, very generous, especially around technology needs, and helped fund a lot of those smart boards in the past. And now, our teachers rely on them, which is great, and they're getting used, and most of them have lived longer than their expected life. But if there are ways for us to be able to, if PTOs are looking for opportunities to help, I know it's not the big splash that we necessarily like to make, but it is a huge need for some of these schools.
Mhm.
Rich?
I guess I'd just add again, looking at that number, and as much as I can attempt to pay attention to state funding to local municipalities, I don't even think those numbers have come out yet. What a town may get, like a GIC, what they're going to get this year. So again, this is early. This
Yes.
is early in the process.
Yes, very much so.
Tom, just because we are in this process, do you want to just talk a little bit about the Chapter 70 funding and how that works?
Sure. We receive a certain amount of funding from the state to assist with schools where, healthier suburban towns, so we don't receive as much. It's about 10 to 15% of the money we receive. Most of the money from the school comes locally, property taxes, local receipts, meals tax, things like that. So fortunately for us, compared to larger cities, swings in Chapter 70, they don't help, but when you hear about big swings in Chapter 70, they don't impact us quite as much because we're not receiving as much as larger cities. But every bit helps. But more things, local issues like property taxes and Market Street, obviously, how they're doing impacts us to a lot greater level.
And Tom, what's the timeline for Circuit Breaker?
Circuit Breaker is actually it's a special ed reimbursement program for out of district tuition and transportation. That is actually paid 1 year in arrears. So we usually find out in June or so what we're receiving for the following year. And we can it's a relatively set formula, so we can come through with a pretty good estimate of what it's going to be. And it's worked into our budget already.
Got it. Any other questions from the committee?
Just one last comment, if I could. We all know that the town and the people that live in this town have always fully supported the schools. And again, this is a start in that process. I mean, we just went through the override process for the school expansion project that was fully supported in the town. So again, once we start working through this process, we will work with the town and the adjustments that need to be made and get to a place that will serve our children, serve our staff, and serve everybody in town that at the level of expectation that they have.
Absolutely. And as this evolves and as we learn more and see where it ends up after these other presentations, there will be updates at school committee meetings. I would anticipate the public budget hearing is going to be sometime in May, and we'll go from there. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
And I will keep it on you for the superintendent's report.
All right. Give me a second here. I just lost it. All right. All right. Are we ready for some college acceptances for the superintendent's report? We have the University of Connecticut, Purdue University, University of Hawaii, Gordon College, Hope College. Does anyone know where Hope College is?
Stacy.
I looked it up. I knew you were going to ask. Michigan.
Yes, doing your homework. That's right. UVA, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. So congratulations to all of those students. I would imagine that in the next few weeks, probably in the next month, there'll be a large number of acceptances come rolling in as we move towards April 15th.
Great, thank you. All right, we have a number of matters for action this evening, so let's dive into this. We've got two policy updates and or three policy updates: equity, public participation, and the bus policy. I will just remind you, because I know there is some discussion on a couple of these. The process that we go through is we will take a motion. Once it's seconded, we will open it up for any discussion that has to do with that motion, and then we will put it to a vote. So let's start with the equity policy. Can I get a?
Would you like me to make the motion?
Sure.
Move to approve the Lynnfield School Policy JBB for educational equity.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this policy? Nope. All right, we'll go to a vote. Rich?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. Can I get a motion on the public participation policy update?
So move to approve the Lynnfield School Committee Policy BEDH, public comment at school committee meetings.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I will open it up for discussion. Stacy, I will hand it to you. I know this is a policy that was it was reported incompletely in a couple of places, and along with the background and some of the intent. So I know you want to take a minute to clarify that. Oh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I do want to clarify a few points. The first being that the changes to this policy actually come at the recommendation from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. The updated language for this particular policy is actually for DESE compliance due to a court case that occurred in Natick. Per MASC, the policy actually has been updated to clarify the purpose and guidelines relative to public comment at school committee meetings. And the revised language, obviously it notes that public comment is an opportunity for individuals to express opinions on issues within the school committee's scope of responsibility. MASC also tells us that the revised language emphasizes that all speakers are expected to present their remarks in a respectful manner, and the chair, after a warning, reserves the right to terminate speech that's not constitutionally protected. The one thing here that I really want to make as the most important point or part of this policy that I think, maybe was not heard or, as you said, reported, is that the school committee desires individuals to attend meetings so that they may become better acquainted with the operations and the programs of our local schools. In addition, the committee would like the opportunity to hear public comment on items that are within the scope of the school committee's responsibilities. So the takeaway here is that this committee always has, and continues to welcome public comment, and it encourages it, in fact. So the policy, with this guidance from MASC, it really just provides or establishes some rules and guidelines in order for the school committee to conduct the district's business in an orderly manner. So really just wanted to kind of clarify some of those points, and happy to discuss further or answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? I think the biggest thing is getting in compliance, especially after reading up on the court case, getting in line with what most of the districts in Massachusetts are doing. So if there's no more discussion, we will put it to a vote. Rich?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes unanimously. All right, last, we have the revised bus policy.
Sure. If I could make the motion?
Yep.
Move to approve, or I should say, move to reinstate the pre-pandemic bus policy in the Lynnfield Public School District.
Second.
Any discussion? I would just modify that to add a date to it. I would say probably effective March. Is it going to be March 15th? Is that so?
Correct. So move to approve the pre-pandemic return to the pre-pandemic bus policy as of March 15th, 2021.
Right.
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. Phil?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes, and please use the bus when it becomes available.
Tim?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes 5-0 with a plea to please use the bus if you're eligible. All right, with that, we will move on to public participation. I see 2 people in the waiting room. Per the guidelines, I will bring you in and it will be for comment only. So Mike Geary, you have joined for public participation. And Mike Geary has left public participation. Lisa, we're bringing in Lisa Haggis. Looks like it's trying to connect. All right, I'm going to put Lisa back into the waiting room. It doesn't look like she's able to connect. We have Jessica Tortola. Jessica Tortola. And Jessica?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. If you can just state your name and confirm you are a Lynnfield resident.
Sorry about that. Just stopping my YouTube. There we go. Jessica Tortola. I am a parent of Huckleberry students, and I was just calling in with some questions. I appreciated the clarification of the 3-foot edge of the chair. Just wanted to state there was some questions going on about that, so I really appreciated that. My question is, as we all return in-person learning, if for some reason numbers start to go up again with the more contagious variants popping around, I'm just wondering, I'm sure there's thoughts given to this, the state, I'm sure will have some guidelines. Is it a thing where the school district might go back to hybrid or go back to remote if things got really bad again? Or would it be something where just your close contacts are now quarantining and it's just a large number of people quarantining? Just a question on that, since I haven't heard that brought up.
Yeah, and Jessica, I'm gonna ask the superintendent to reach out to you this week just to answer that, and I think that's probably a question that other people will have, so we can just put it on the frequently asked questions when that gets going.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate what you guys have been doing and appreciate all the commentary tonight.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, we will try Lisa one more time. Lisa? All right. It looks like that is not, for whatever reason, Lisa is not able to connect. So with that, there is no other public participation. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
And before we put that to a vote, I do want to just put this out there. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 23rd. It is actually the annual meeting that we schedule for Boston to work with our METCO students and be accessible to METCO Inc. We often have the director of METCO Inc. at that meeting. I think it's safe to say that meeting will not be held in Boston in 2 weeks, so it will be likely a remote meeting as such. I think we can still address those topics, and we should look to, let's see how the next few months pan out. If we can get into Boston for a meeting, I would love to be able to do that. And if we need to push it into the fall, we can do that as well. Won't change the topics that we're talking about, though. So motion to adjourn, Stacy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you.